introducing the amazing man who's responsible for this evening's events and this week's events at the Capitol. He works tirelessly for Indian country, and for the second year in a row has made this really beautiful Candlelight Vigil happen. Assemblymember James Ramos. For 168 years following California's statehood, California Indian people lacked representation at the Capitol, in the legislature. We lacked a legislator from us who advocated for us. In 2018, Assemblymember Ramos finally changed that and became the first California Indian to serve in the legislature. He is a true trailblazer for all of us, advocating on so many issues, bringing awareness to some of the most important issues, prominent issues that are faced by our tribal communities, making great strides in addressing so many of the challenges that plague California Indian country through action and advocacy, and ensuring these efforts are supported at the state level through law, through policy, through coordination with his fellow Senate and Assembly members, and perhaps most importantly, ensuring that California allocates budgetary resources toward these efforts. Some of the many issues he's brought to the forefront: repatriation and return of our ancestors to their rightful resting place, water issues faced by reservation communities in the state, addressing the fentanyl crisis that's affected so many of our families and our communities, removing offensive language, terminology, and imagery from the state capitol and throughout the state, helping resolve the jurisdictional void resulting from the imposition of Public Law 280 on not just tribes, but the state of California by the federal government, and of course, his groundbreaking efforts to address the MMIP crisis. In his 6 short years in the Assembly, Assemblymember Ramos has introduced more than 40 bills aimed directly at supporting California Indian country. Assemblymember Ramos serves as a model for me. He serves as a model for other tribal leaders. He serves as a model for youth. He serves as a true model for Indian country. He's given us a voice in the California legislature. With that, I'll turn it over to Assemblymember Ramos.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you everybody for being here tonight. On this historic night, the second year that we're able to light the Capitol Dome red, which when it gets darker you'll see the dome red. But it's also about the culture that was in front of you here with the different groups here, Miwoks, Tuolumne, Yurok brush dancers, and then later on tonight with the intertribal bird singers that will show the true history and culture of the state of California. Yurok brush dancers were here and they represent the largest tribe in the state of California. So give them a round of applause there. But it's also the willingness and dedication of the Yurok people that have brought awareness around the missing and murdered Indigenous persons crisis in the state of California, holding conferences and educating people along the way, as well as others that are up here tonight with the leaders that are here and the different singers that really brought blessings in songs. So give them another round of applause there. The issue of missing and murdered Indigenous persons and women is nothing new in Indian country. I grew up on the Salmon Well Indian Reservation. I still reside there. And it's something that we grew up with. And the way it was explained to us when we were growing up is that people would just be going off to find themselves, so they went off for a journey. 3 months later, they still have never came back. 6 months later, 3 years, 6 years later, nothing. And yet we were content in knowing that we didn't know the outcome of that. And it wasn't something that just happened. It goes back in history, the history of our people, in the colonializational periods with the boarding schools, where people would go to the boarding schools and never return home. And the people just understood that they just never came home. But today in the state legislature, with your voices, we're able to bring attention to say that we're not going to take that anymore, that we're going to stand united with each and every one of us to make sure that our voices are being heard in the state of California. A little bit more about me. I grew up on the Seminole Indian Reservation way before gaming came. The issues that we're tackling in the state legislatures are issues that were with us way before gaming came. Gaming was an opportunity for us to open up that window to address the issues that plague our people. That's why we're here today. That's why we're raising the voice of all in the issues that affect all of our people in the state of California. We continue to make sure that that voice moves forward. And I sit here in the state legislature, Serrano and Cahuilla, the first California Indian ever elected, but I can't be the last. I have 6 more years before I'm termed out. Out here in this audience is the next Indian leader to assume that mantle to make sure that our voices be heard. I grew up not different from many of you in the audience here today, and the speakers and the singers that are there, overcoming a lot of those obstacles on Indian reservations, issues that we still fight against. We still fight that alcohol is the #1 killer of our people. We continue to raise awareness around domestic violence for our people, where domestic violence incidents with our people outweighs others in the state of California. And today, in one of the hearings that we had, it was said that the state moved forward to make sure that we had a task force against fentanyl. The state moved forward to start to look at the retail theft. But has the state moved forward to make sure that there's mutual respect and understanding with California's first people? It's time that we move forward to make sure that the crisis and the declarations of emergencies around missing and indigenous people, murdered people, is something that continues to move forward, bringing solutions. And one of those solutions is simply sitting down and gaining mutual respect from the outside community and the Indian people of the state of California. It's time that we start to move forward. But it's also time that we start to raise leaders in our communities. Communities to run for those political offices on our school boards, to run for the county board of supervisors that are out there, to run for the state assembly, the state senate, and ultimately the governor of the state of California. It's time that our voices be heard. And it's not such a far idea. I'm here with my wife here of 35 years. And 35 years ago, we never dreamed that we would be up here at this podium and making laws in the state of California. That's a dream that each and every one of you can harness and move forward. It's a dream that our people have had for us over the years. It's that dream of us being in that capital, not just 1, but 80 members within tribal nations in the state of California, making the laws of the state of California, of the ancestral territory of our people. It's time that we move forward and secure that dream. It's time that we unify around each other and start to address the true issues that affect us as people. We're here today on the 2nd annual lighting of the Dome Red to bring awareness to the missing and murdered indigenous people. And I'll let you know that our voices aren't falling on deaf ears. The Attorney General of the state of California put out a press release last week that they were able to prosecute someone for a murder against a member of Pitt River. That individual got 26 years to life for murdering one of our people on Pitt River. It's time that our voices be heard. It's time that our voices and what's affecting our people doesn't go in silence. It's time that we gain those allies moving forward, like the Attorney General and the first partner that spoke here today. We continue to move forward, but as Indian people, we need allies in the state legislature. So we've been able to form the Native American Legislative Caucus. And many members were here tonight, and I'll announce their names at the end of when I'm done speaking. But it's time that we start to see that movement of our people. When we start to see those investigations moving forward. It took one of us to get here to truly understand the plight of our people, to move forward and listen in hearings from your voices of what it is that we need. That's how the Feather Alert came to be. Because it was the people themselves, Indian people, asking for that alert system, and we were able to do that will of you to make sure that we got that bill through the Assembly, the Senate, and signed by the governor of the state of California. It's your voices that are driving these policies. We continue to work hard on those issues and bringing together educational components around Public Law 280 in the state chambers. We started talking about Public Law 280 in the beginning of the year. And not many people in the chambers knew about Public Law 280. How that law was created not to protect us, Indian people, but it was created to protect the outside community from us. That's why we have so much jurisdictional divide within Indian country. That's why we see the lack of investigations against murders against our people. That's why we see slow response to altercations that take place. That's why we need to be able to stand together with our allies, educate the legislature on those laws. As we're fighting other laws in the state of California to ensure that others have the right to be able to move forward and raise their family. It's time that the voices of California's first people are also included in that dream. It's time that our voices rise up to say that we need to make sure that when the UC systems and the Cal State University systems together harness over 1.4 million of our ancestors, it's time that we unify to say, let's bring our loved ones home for a proper reburial. It's time that our voices be heard. It's time that we gain allies. It's time that each and every one of you do your part in our communities, not just on our tribal governments, but within the communities that we live, because that's our ancestral territory. It's time that we start to move forward to be that voice of change within our communities, that voice of change in the state of California, that voice of change in the United States that we call home, and it's our territory from the beginning. It's time that we start to talk about the water rights that so many people claim to be, but yet when those rights were given out, Indian people weren't at the table. It's time that we're at the table on all these issues that affect our people. It's time that our voices be heard. It's time in the state of California for California's first people, to be a forethought, not an afterthought of the policies being discussed in these chambers. It's time that we unify around each other to ensure that when a feather goes out in Southern California, that Northern California knows about it too. And when a feather alert goes out in Northern California, Southern California knows about it too. When a feather alert goes out, that we make sure we bring our loved ones home. It's time that we continue to move forward. And what you've seen here today, with the cultural performances and the discussions and the hearings and a press conference this morning, is our voices are being united through the state of California, from Europe to Miwa to Southern California. It's the California Indian people's voices that are resonating in the state and in these chambers and on these grounds here tonight. These grounds that are Miwa, Nisenan people's grounds. It's time that we stand together and be that catalyst for the voices that continue to cry out in the state of California. Our people that are crying out, tell them who we truly are as California Indian people. Tell them the truth about the history. Tell them the truth about our resiliency, that we're still here practicing our culture on the footsteps of the Capitol in 2024. We came together and pushed a piece of legislation, AB 338, that moved forward and replaced the Junipero Serra statue on the other side of this building. And on November 7th of last year, we put up the monument, a monument dedicated to Miwok Nissan leader, Mr. Franklin, that now sits on the Capitol grounds as a testament and honor to California's first people. It's time that our voices be heard in all of the areas that are there. And it's fitting that now we have a place to call home and a monument to call our own for California Indian people. But we're not going to stop there. This year, with those behind me, we're talking about moving forward in the month of November. In the month of November, National Native American Heritage Month, right down this street and coming to the Capitol on November 9th will be the first Native American History Month parade from right there in the Capitol Mall to the Capitol steps, honoring California's first people and this nation's first people. It's time that our voices be heard. It's time that we unify around each other and really discuss the issues that plague us. It's time that we move forward. So this year, we're going to have a Native American Day parade making history in the state of California with the first parade dedicated to Native American people here in the state of California and organized by the Native American people. So the voice runs deep. It's time that we stand side by side with one another. It's time that we start to have these hearings. It's time that we also offer our ear to listen to our brothers and sisters that might be going through something challenging in their lives. Our people have gone through great turmoil and historic trauma. It's time that we start to open up our ears and listen to one another and help each other through this time. We have not started that road to recovery with the historical trauma going our way. We have to start that road moving forward. The governor did do an apology, apologizing for the historic atrocities and treatment towards California's first people. But we as a people have to be able to open up ourselves to start that healing moving forward within our circles. That's what our songs bring to us. That's what our culture brings to us. They tried to wipe it out, but we're still here singing songs, our cultural songs on these footsteps. That's the resiliency of our people. And it's our songs and our culture that will carry us through. We stand united here in these chambers. But it's time that we need more. No one's ever said there could only be one California Indian ever elected. We need 2, we need 3, we need 4. We need to fill that chamber with those that understand our passion and our desire to make that change and bring awareness within Indian country. It's time that our voices rise to the level that everyone hears what it is that we're talking about. When we talk about statistics, and they say, well, Native Americans are here with these statistics and others are here. It's not just an afterthought anymore. We gain allies to make sure that we start to bring those statistics down. We had a whole day, a whole week of hearings on why California is number 5 of all states in the nation, of not even investigating murders against our people. And now the Attorney General is moving forward to establish a commission on PL 280. Not only just talking about it, but moving forward and prosecuting people, holding them accountable for murders against our people. The tide is starting to change. It's time that we continue to hold that faith and make sure that we're standing side by side with one another. The tide is changing. But we have to stay steadfast. We have to continue to move forward. Write letters in the newspapers. Let our loved ones know that they're not standing alone out there in this world alone. That we're standing united with them here in the state chambers and each and every tribe that you represent across the state of California. We stand united in bringing our voices forward to make sure that we're not just sitting back and taking anymore. It's time that the voices of California people are rising up and saying our voices are loud, our voices are here, and in making sure that our voices are resonating in the Capitol and in the governor's office for the bills that need to be implemented and changed to ensure that when they talk about safety in the state of California, that that does include California's first people. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak and bringing me up here, but I can't do this work without the voices of each and every one of you. Each one of these policies has come from hearings and the voices of California's first people. The Feather Alert, AB 3099, making sure we're collecting data. So your voices are being heard. Your voices are being heard in these chambers. And with that, we see other legislators stepping up to the plate. In the administration office, we have Christina Snyder and Loretta Miranda in the governor's office with tribal liaisons being that voice for us there. We also have with us Assemblymember Avelino Valencia, Assemblymember Matasucci, Assemblymember Alvarez, Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia, Assemblymember Mike Gibson, Assemblymember Gail Pellerin, Assemblymember Juan Carrillo, Senator Nancy Skinner. We see all these legislators coming together as part of the Native American Legislative Caucus. And we continue to move forward because at the end of the day, it's not about us. It's about the next generation, as you've seen the young ones dancing. But it's also about being that catalyst for our elders and our ancestors, for what they went through, to make sure that we're standing here and recognizing them. Because the only way that I would be here today is because of my elders and ancestors from the San Juan Reservation, Serrano and Cahuilla elders. So let's give them all a round of applause. So I want to thank